Hey YouTube, and welcome to another Guild Wars build video. This is my Ranger build. It is built to be ranged and high damage and critical hit and just lots of burst and just to kill the opponent as fast as possible. The point of the build is just to stand at a high place, get the terrain advantage, and rain arrows down on the opponent. They can't do much about it with all your damage. And so I'm going to start with the runes. I use Rune of the Pack to give power and swiftness duration, a little bit of support with the 4th ability, and then plus 100 precision to help with my criticals. And as you can see, my power is a really good size. It does incredible damage. Plus 54% critical hit is more than half of the time, and then when I critical, it's an added 50% damage on top of that. So as you can see, I'm using Berserker. That's a giveaway for a damage build. It gives great power, critical hit chance, critical damage, and a little plus to health, which is always nice. And on both of my bows, short bow and long bow, I use the Superior Fire just for extra burst damage, and I chose it because it can inflict the damage every 5 seconds, and 30% chance to critical really doesn't matter because you're criticaling over half of the time on average. So that 30% chance is going to activate very quickly. You'll see fire being thrown everywhere. And then just for down here, because I have an extra slot, I put power, just because that helps. And then for traits, I put 20, 30, 0, 20, 0. For the opening strike to give vulnerability when I first strike, 10% when endurance is full. That's so when I'm standing in a high place, dodge roll really isn't a whole lot needed because you're using it more or less to dodge melee attacks, but when you're high up, it's not really needed. And that's what my heal is for, is because I'm standing still for a decent amount of time, so the healing spring will just give me constant regeneration as I'm standing in it. And I'm just going to be dealing 10% more damage as I'm just standing in a terrain superior stance, and then I'll just rain my arrows down. Alpha training is just pets have opening strike. It's just extra damage and gives vulnerability with the first strike, and this build is all about vulnerability with this trait called piercing arrows, which every time an arrow attack lands, it pierces them, which means it gives them a stack of vulnerability. This is really nice with the rapid fire for longbow, and just every time I hit them with an arrow, which is all of my attacks, whether for longbow or shortbow, it's going to inflict vulnerability, which means my damage is going to do even more with each time I hit them. And the rain of arrows being an AoE, it's just going to be a lot of vulnerability and a lot of damage and lots of burst with my sigils on my weapons. For skirmishing, Tailwind gains swiftness when swapping, and Furious Grip to gain fury when swapping. That's just my mobility within combat, because mobility is a lot of what this build is. Because it's a DPS glass cannon kind of build, it can't take a whole lot of hits at one time, so swapping weapons to gain swiftness and fury just kind of helps you escape better, and the fury just brings your critical chance up higher in case you have to fight instead of flight. So it's a fight or flight. That's what the traits are for. Sharpen Edge to cause bleeding on critical hits. That's just added damage of conditions. So the arrows do the burst damage, and then the sharpened edges does the DPS with the conditions. So burst over time, and then just more over time with the short bow. The next one is quick draw. Short bow and longbow skills recharge 20% faster. That's a giveaway. The arrow attacks are everything. You're not really gonna be going for a stomp, so the arrows are what's gonna keep you alive and deal all your damage. 10% more damage while flanking. That's just if they're running away, you're gonna be doing even more damage. Vulnerability everything. So 10% more while flanking, 10% when endurance is full, and then the piercing arrows and everything just comes together really nicely. And for the last one is for my traps I have down here, which is the conditions last twice as long and their recharge is 20% faster. The traps is for if people get in your face, you need to kite them to get away, or if you're just trying to hold a point, maybe do a little extra damage, can't get out of their melee, you throw in traps. So I know that the traps don't really help you when you're high up and sniping, which is what this build is focused on, but the traps do really nice damage overall, and they do pulse. See, this is damage per pulse, so that leads to the intention that it does the damage more than once, and it has a duration of 3 seconds. So, and when you rain your arrows through the traps, you're actually doing extra damage with this one, because when you shoot your arrows through the flame trap, the combo field fire means that when you shoot arrows into it, it picks up fire damage as well. So the fire trap is really nice to have when it's triggered. The poison's just to cull healing, and cripple is for the kite, more so than the other ones, and it gives decent bleeding as well. For down here nature magic, I use rejuvenation. Regeneration when health reaches 75%. That's just helpful to stay alive. The regeneration I apply lasts 33% longer. That does help with rejuvenation and my heal. Any boon is shared with my pet. The regeneration, and that of course, which is going to share it, even though it already does technically. But anything else that I'm going to get that people might put on me is also going to be put on my pet. And evasive purity, when I dodge it removes blind and poison, which helps keep me healed. So if I do have to dodge and people are throwing attacks up at me, when I dodge roll I can make sure that my heals are coming all the way through, and not cut in half by the poison. So it has really nice the plus critical damage by putting it in skirmishing along with precision. This is all my critical hit stuff. Up here is the condition duration and power, and down here is the boon duration and health gain. I have a pretty decent health pool in this build. And so for down here, I have the attacks. The farther away, the more damage. That's why the longbow is deadly. Rapid fire with vulnerability. This is a big source of damage. This is stealth, so if you get spotted, you can throw it to stealth to move over just a little bit to get out of a targeted attack, and people won't be able to see you. So it's more of a survivability than anything, but it also gives your pet swiftness. So if an enemy's getting away and you can throw hunter shot, then have your pet chase after them and hopefully get them down so that you can perform a stomp if needed, or just down them and keep your pet on them until they die. This one's the knockback. It's good for Skyhammer when you're knocking people off the edge or anything of that nature. It does great damage as well. That's for if people get in your face trying to jump up to where you are. You can knock them off and they'll have to start all over again. It's just to keep you alone up at your point. And if point blank shot doesn't work, that's what your traps are for. Barrage is to keep people off points, and if they stay on the points they're stupid because the damage is going to be enormous, and the cripple is huge. 12 stacks of cripple for 1 3/4 seconds. The longer they stay in it, the more they're crippled, the more they're gonna not have a chance to get away, and just the more damage you're gonna have to take. With all of my damage increase, they're not gonna get away. They're gonna die fairly quickly, and there's nothing they can do about it because you're at a terrain superior stance way up high somewhere, so it's going to take them forever to get up to you, they're not going to be able to get up to you. The weakness to this build is being pulled, or some kind of knockback that'll take you off your point of position, which is what kiting and the stealth is for, so you can get away, and that for swiftness and stability if you are getting controlled by a large group and you need to flee even faster. The short bow is for when the enemies just stay in your face, or your burst damage just isn't doing enough damage and you want more condition damage to take them down. The short bow is for it, because every time you shoot them, it inflicts bleeding. If you need to hit poison because they're about to die, or they're gonna heal, you can quickly swap and throw poison on them to keep their healing down. This one is just an evasive shot. I use it in place for a dodge, and it's also going to give me swiftness. So if I'm running away, I can quickly turn, shoot it, gives me swiftness for a little bit, and I evaded an attack that they've thrown, and I can keep running if I need to. Crippling shot does nice bleed damage and cripples to keep the enemies behind you, so you can always stay away from their melee range. They'll be forced to use ranged, which you can dodge a lot easier than melee, because you can see their shots coming. And concussion shot just for a daze and stun as an interrupt in case they go for a stomp, or you can tell that they're going to use MOA or some kind of skill to interrupt you, and you can get the concussion shot, which works even better if you're behind or at the side of them. So that's how this build works. The pets, I just use the jaguar and the wolf, because the wolf has the fear, which you can actually control your pets when you're downed. So if you get downed and you throw your stun and that's not enough, you can use your wolf's fear. Just hit F2 when you're downed, and your wolf, you can still command it. And then just the jaguar gains stealth. So when you're downed, you can still control your pets in every way. It's just your F1, F2, F3 stuff won't show up. So you have to just memorize what they do and hope that they can help you stand back up fast enough. So that's how this build works. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And just to show you the damage of Rain of Arrows, watch all the fire, the burst, all the criticals going through. These guys have heavy defense. Look at all the conditions. They're not all really from me, but the bleeding and the cripple are all mine. And then the arrows, you can see when I shoot from behind, it's dealing massive damage. Over 6k damage. That's a lot of damage, and plus all that other damage, it's enormous. And as I'm shooting them, I'm dealing almost 1k damage, and that's on a heavy armored target. So this build works extremely well, and all you have to do is find a nice high place to stand and rain your arrows down on unsuspecting opponents, and they usually won't be able to do anything about it because you have the terrain's superior stance. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below, leave a like, share with your friends, and don't shut down the build if it doesn't work immediately. You are very squishy, as they call it, and will die fairly quickly if there's enough people around, or if they somehow successfully get up to you. But the reason I use traps is because the cooldown is just so minimal. See, it's 12-second cooldown, so you can just throw them down as you're running away and launch more arrows at them, evade backwards with short bow. When you swap in combat, there's some swiftness, which is extended because of the boon duration. So that's all I gotta say. Thank you all for watching. Have a great day.